My name is Sergey Radchenko, and I am a public policy fellow at the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars and professor at the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. And I will be talking about Russia-Ukraine relations. What is Russia's off-ramp if it exists in the Ukraine crisis? It's possible that what Putin is looking for is to change the situation in eastern Ukraine in his favor. He has, of course, backed a separatist movement there for some years, but the situation now is stalemated because the government in Kiev does not want to implement the Minsk agreements that have been reached, nor is Russia implementing those agreements, which would provide the separatists with a greater degree of autonomy from Kiev. So for some months, Putin has been trying to pressure Ukraine into doing its part of the bargain, and he has done so. He has not achieved any success. So perhaps one way to de-escalate would be to resolve that issue around the separatist occupied areas of eastern Ukraine, to see if perhaps Russia would be satisfied with a partial solution like that. So that is a potential off-ramp. We just don't know whether this is going to be enough for Putin or whether he has bigger plans with regard to Ukraine. With Belarus, we have a very interesting situation. Obviously, Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, has been able to maintain his hold on power despite massive popular protests against him, having resorted to brutality. He, however, has fallen into a trap of a kind. He has become ever more reliant on Russia for his survival, his political survival. So what we're seeing in the current crisis is that Russia has strengthened cooperation with Belarus and has sent massive military forces into Belarus, including aircraft, etc., very quietly, actually, very quietly. So as people are talking about Russia's, incursion into Ukraine, we already have a massive buildup of military forces in Belarus, and it's not clear if and when this crisis over Ukraine is resolved, whether the Russians are going to return and going to go home, or whether they'll stay. In any case, what seems quite clear is that Belarus has firmly fallen into Russia's friendly embrace and will stay there for a very, very long time to come. So on China, the situation is very unclear. Russia and China are they're not allies. They're not military allies. They are in an alignment of a kind. That is to say, they do not act against each other. They act together in some areas, but also each country maintains its freedom of maneuver. So if Russia were to resort to military option in Ukraine, I'm not sure that China would necessarily want to get involved in this. China would try to maintain benevolent neutrality in this conflict, which is to say, if sanctions were imposed against Russia as a penalty for military action in Ukraine, then certainly China would help Russia evade some of those sanctions. That is very clear situation that we have on that front. So that is that I think is all I could say about China and its potential reaction to Russian incursion. Where Russia to move into Ukraine is something that we still don't know will happen or will not happen. It is very clear that NATO would not be obliged to help Ukraine because Ukraine is not covered by NATO's Article 5 guarantees. The United States may provide weapons to Ukraine as it is actually doing now. Some other members of the alliance may also choose to do that. At the same time, it is very clear that NATO will not want to fight a war with Russia in Ukraine. What the United States will do, however, and that in itself is a deterrent to Russia, is that it will resort to very serious economic sanctions to penalize Russia for any such incursion, were it to take place.